On this week's episode, I dance. Sam hits shit with hammers. And Lisa sands a block of wood. What's up, gang? Welcome to today's episode, and on today's episode we are going to give you a little fiery treat, and we are going to be pouring the big Stargazer ring by Tanya Russell. We actually poured the majority of the ring yesterday, but today we are going to allow you to see what we're pouring. We've got all these shells. These have just been, I've just turned the kiln off and it is quite warm. But we've popped these shells in this morning, and I put the 2 burners on, and it gets to about 800-900 degrees. And you preheat these shells before you pour bronze into them. The reason for that is because if you poured molten bronze into a cold shell, the bronze tends to solidify a lot faster. Therefore, all of the detail, or those hard to reach places, tend to get missed. So we like to get our shells red raw, and we like to pour our bronze at about 1100 degrees into a piping hot shell, and that gives you your best casting results. So I'm going to whack this kiln back on. We're going to put it on for about an hour, and then I'm going to go over to the furnace, whack that bad boy on, and get the bronze nice and hot. Aha! Now, ladies and gents, I need to change this gas bottle, change the propane so we have more pressure in that kiln. This is a lot easier. Just pop that in. Ooh. Beautiful. I feel like we're at like a Formula 1 pit stop, you know, when you got to like unplug, take the wheels off, put the wheels on. It's like that with gas. When the kiln's on and the furnace is on, you got to change the gas bottle. Halfway through a pour, whew, it is tense. It's lefty-tighty, I believe. Lefty-tighty, righty-loosey. That's definitely not how the rhyme goes. So I'm just going to put 1 burner on at the minute, because if you put too much force or energy into that kiln and it's not got anywhere to go like straight away, so if you come around the back here, our furnace, normally they have burners at the bottom, but heat rises quite obviously naturally. So what I want to try and do, which is a more efficient way of curing your shells, so I've been told, that the flames go in at the top and is forced down. Then obviously you've got your flue at the bottom, and then the air needs to travel down the kiln, and then it needs to pop out into this chimney and up the top, so you get more of a flow of heat. So actually the heat at the bottom of the kiln is just as hot as the heat at the top. So the reason why I put 1 burner on first is so I get the heat flowing, and as it gets really hot in there, I turn the other burner on because it's already going down the kiln and up the chimney, in theory. So now the kiln's on, we're going to come over here and going to get the furnace ready. So I'm going to clean up all this sand and shell and stone and bits that are going to cause any trip hazards, because when you're playing with 60 kilos worth of molten metal, cannot take any risks. So we're going to clean all the stone off, clean it all up, and get the bronze ready in the kiln, in the furnace, turn this bad boy on and get ready. Right, let's find a broom. We got these the other day, which they're absolute lifesavers. Metal buckets. When you've poured once or twice into all of this sand, because it's kiln dried sand, it insulates the heat so well. And then you put your sand into a plastic bucket, and guess what happens? The thing bloody melts. So, metal buckets. They're the best thing. Best thing since sliced bread. Brilliant invention, the bucket. Love it. And hey presto, the furnace area is completely clean. Just took the lid off the furnace, got about 30 kilos of metal in there, and we're going to ignite the furnace now. So I just need to light a bit of cardboard, drop it in. Then we've got this bouncy castle blower attached to cast iron pipe with a coupling attached to the ribbon burner. So this is the ribbon burner. Normally you have a straight through pipe. Some people have a straight through pipe. We've got a ribbon burner on the horizontal. Normally these are used in forges. Just down here, right in there, it's a large rectangular head with a load of perforated holes in it. So if you imagine just a rectangular block like this, and it's just the cavity, and inside is a mesh with 8 holes or however many holes. And the idea behind these burners is that the oxygen and the propane mix up more so in this cavity and gets projected into the furnace. And these ribbon burners, they tend to work primarily much better on back pressure. So if you've got the lid off and the burners on, it doesn't really do an awful lot. As soon as you stick that lid on, the flames are being pushed back into the furnace, giving it more energy, more heat, a lot hotter. So that's this furnace, and this furnace, it's only been used for about 6 months to a year, and it has got some really good use. Really excited to keep using it. So let's get this on and let's have some fun. So I'll just light a bit of cardboard and drop it in where the gas comes through. Make sure that this blower is all switched on, we have power. Turn the gas on. We've got a safety valve there, so if anything went wrong, God forbid, we can turn it straight off at the bottle. And there's also one here down by the blower, so we can shut it off at 2 places. But they're both open, that one's not, this one is. The blower goes on, gas will follow. Let there be light. You can see how the jets individually propelling flames. So those blue lights are obviously the individual jets. Instead of one big straight through pipe, we've got a ribbon burner. So now we need to put the lid on. So this has got a massive hole in the furnace, and when I built this lid, I didn't key up the inside of the lid enough so the refractory comes away from the lid. So the vibrations of the refractory and the lid and the flame just creates this horrible noise. So we block up the hole to stop the energy flowing through, and it also keeps the furnace nice and hot inside. So I've just turned on the second burner now because it's actually really quite hot in there. So I've put the second burner on just to give it a little bit of extra heat. So the furnace is going to take about an hour to get to proper molten bronze, and these would have been in probably for about 20 minutes, so an hour and 20 minutes. So between an hour and 2 hours for big shells such as this is what we poured yesterday. I mean, these are a good meter, but they've been directly fed. So a direct feed is where you just have your main gate. So this is a pouring cup that we cut off this morning, and these are your main gates that are feeding the bronze into your sculpture or your shell, and these are the vents. So this is where the air travels back out of the shell, your airs and your gases. But the beautiful thing about a direct feed is that there's actually less metal work to be done once they've been cast. So the direct feed, this is the only entrance to the actual shell, so they would have been welded, wax welded onto here. The bronze would have travelled all the way down to the bottom and then filled up again, and then the airs and the gases travel back out of these vents. You can have a direct feed, and then you can have a bottom fed system. So you would have this pouring cup at the top, but a big old gate running down the bottom of the pattern, and then it would have filled up from the bottom up. But the only issue with that is you've obviously got a lot more metal work because you would have a lot more inlets to grind off and fettle back in. This is a little bit more risky to be doing, But if your shells are hot enough and your bronze is at the right temperature, you shouldn't really have much of a problem. It took me a while to figure this system out, and it's actually saved us a lot of time up at the waxwork and in the shell room. So this is what we poured yesterday. We're just cutting all the runners and risers off, and we're just wire brushing all the shell back. We need to blast all of this off, knock all this out, and we need to start putting this ring together. So let's pour the rest of the shells today, and within the coming weeks, this ring should be all put together and fettled back. So guys, basically what we're going to do is we've come over, this thing is piping hot. I'm going to stick my leathers on because I do not want to be putting my hand anywhere near this and at the risk of getting burned. So we have these beautiful leathers. All right, I'm going to do a little show for you. These things are brilliant. They literally pop on like so. Bam! Bam! Look at that, quick fire action. I'm actually 5 foot nothing, so these leathers aren't actually, well, they don't fit the best. They're not tailor-made for me. Then this isn't it. This isn't it, ladies and gentlemen. We have the top half, the crop top, if you like. The crop top goes on, my arms are covered, and so is my neck. You probably have a lot more practical leathers that can be put on, but I like these ones. The German Lederhosen. I'm just going to check this, the bronze in here. We don't want the bronze overcooking. If you overcook the metal, from experience, when pouring into shells, the bronze bubbles more so than it should. And then what happens is the gas is between the layer of bronze and the ceramic shell, and it bubbles away like so. And then once it's solidified, you end up with a really pitted surface on your metal. So the key is not to have it too hot. Obviously 1100 degrees is fucking hot, but any hotter, 12, 13, 14, it can cause some surface issues. I'm gonna whack my gloves on. Anyway, if anyone knows of any better gauntlets that I can buy or invest in, these ones aren't great, they're not the best. And I've been looking and looking and looking, and I go through so many gauntlets. I just want a pair that, you know, I can trust. But it's not yet melted, but it's about to turn. It looks a bit chewy, which is a good sign. So it's not quite ready yet. We've still probably got about, I'd say, half an hour. But I'll just go through with you what we use to, once the bronze is poured, you generally have a few impurities. If you've got, if you're pouring seconds, which is reusable bronze, you tend to have a little bit of the shell maybe on the bronze, so you end up with sort of material that floats to the top in the crucible. So you use what they call a drosser, and a drosser is just, I mean, mine needs cleaning, but a drosser is just a bit of 16mm round with a bit of a 4mm plate. This needs melting down or grinding back, but it's almost like a hook, and you scoop the slag off the top. You heard me right, I said slag, and it comes off the top, and you basically, it's just all the impurities that are in the metal that you don't want in your ceramic shell. This definitely needs a clean. So we're going to get that melted off, get that nice and hot, that bronze will melt, fall off. Self-cleaning tools, they're the tools we like. So if you're ever pouring bronze, never put cold ingots into the furnace, especially when the bronze is molten, because if you put a damp or cold ingot into the furnace, the moisture, basically as you put moisture into the bronze, kind of explodes. So yeah, if you ever put in bronze into the furnace, make sure it's preheated and all the moisture is evaporated out the metal. So we'll just pop these cups on top, then all the moisture evaporates, and then once they're nice and toasty, you pop them in the furnace, and then they can melt down with the rest of the bronze in the crucible. Here we have Sam in his natural habitat, playing with pointless stuff, trying to look busy. Those shells in there take about 35 kilos. It's always good to have extra bronze in your pot just in case you need more. There's nothing worse than pouring a shell and it not actually filling up. It's a little bit silly of you if you don't put in enough metal. But what you can do to try and rectify any of these issues is weigh your wax before it goes into the shell room, because to every kilo of wax normally equates to about 8 to 10 kilos of bronze. So you just times it by 8 or 10 to the amount of metal you need, and then that should then be enough to fill your shell, and you should never really have a problem of like filling up your pot to the rim every time. Nice and melted now. The way you can tell it's done is that you're looking for droplets off the end of your steel. That's an indication that the bronze is ready. If the bronze was sticking to the steel, then it's obviously too cold. So that's good to go. In it goes. Then we put a little tinfoil hat on top just to stop any sand or any bits getting inside. And then we pour sand around the whole thing, and it just supports the shell. Because these are quite long and thin, you want as much pressure around the whole thing. So when you pour like 40 kilos of metal into it, it's kind of supported. Beautiful. So we're going to have 3 people pouring these sections. So we're going to have Flo operating the hand, the controls for the lifting hoist, and then me and Sam are going to be doing the pour itself. So we've got to work as a team. Ready? 1, 2, 3, lift. Bend those knees. So as you can see, this is super hard. So we're just going to take the slag off the top. Take the worst of it off. So these tongs come down now and they just go around the crucible. Whoop. Take the safety off, and up we go. Whoop. Then we come over to the pouring shank and just ease it in. Whoop. The key element is to lock the crucible into the shank. So we've got a chain with a bit of angle iron, and that just locks on like so. So the bail alarm goes on. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, you grab yours. Up it goes. Okay. Whoop. Go up, Flo. Yeah. Whoop. Up, Flo. Up, whoop, lovely, beautiful. Science. Whoop. Right, let's get another ingot on there. Beautiful. So that's it, ladies and gents. That there is 1 pour. We are going to do another 2 pours like that. So that is in its entirety, the whole process. Safety always comes first because it is 1200 degree heat, and if one of you are not on the ball, it can all fall apart. So you all got to act as a team, work together, and make sure it's all done nice and efficient so that we get the best possible result. Science! So Sam dragged this out like he's knocked out a person and taken him outside. But he's dragging it outside and we're going to pop it outside to let it cool down, and then he's going to bash the shell off to reveal our treasure inside. So once we've poured our bronze into our ceramic shell, ladies and gents, as you can see, we've got a big pile of ceramic which we need to pop into the skip behind us. But once it's cooled down a little bit, you can take a big hammer and just start bashing this ceramic away from the bronze. It needs to cool down a little bit more, but if you just hit the top of the cup, the vibrations ricochet down the actual sculpture and you're not at risk of putting dents into the bronze. But if we give it a little encouragement on the surface, because there's fire cement on there, it goes absolutely rock solid. But as you can see, ladies and gents, we got it right down the bottom here, which I'm super pleased about, because that tells me all the bronzes got down to the bottom and the shells were hot enough, the bronze was hot enough, and let's hope that we got no pitting. We got no pitting on the surface. So this runner here, in my eyes, is vital when casting something of this scale, because what you want is all the bronze, like I said earlier, all the bronze is being fed in from the top, and as it flows down, I want air to shoot up the top of the sculpture, which then draws the metal down to the bottom of the shell. So it's safe to say that this piece has worked quite nicely. All we need to do now, clean this puppy up, and away we go. Beautiful. Weekly roundup. Huh?
It's like a ballet pose.
Yeah. Well, that's what it's very, very angelic. We'll do that bit now. Yeah. Oh God, sweaty Betty. So we're just cutting a base for a portrait that we cast a couple of weeks ago, and we're just going to sand it all down. It's a nice bit of oak. And I think we're just going to cut a nice square, and then we're going to drill a hole, countersink the bottom. We've put a thread inside the portrait so that we can bolt the portrait to the base. And we're going to clean this bit of wood up and make it look absolutely shiny. But yeah, I'm just going to wait for Lisa to cut that up. Oh, we'll be good to go. Vera's just she did the wax work on this beautiful piece by Ian Edwards, and this is what they look like in their raw form, their raw waxes. So Vera's just really brilliantly gated and treed up these. So this will now go into the shell room and will get covered in a ceramic shell and encase all of this wax. And once we're ready, we'll put the wax and the shell into the kiln, and then the wax will then disappear, leaving you with a hollow ceramic. And that's what our bronze gets poured into. There you go, Vera. Lovely jubbly. That might not be man enough, to be honest, but if you want to just swap that, would that be alright?
Yeah.
You can get the worst of it off with a flappy pad, though.
Does it want to be really neat, or is it best?
It does. It can be. She likes it rough and ready.
Yeah.
Okay, so last week on the weekly roundups, we had shown you a little hand with a saucer, right, for the Mad March hare. I got a little bit confused. I called it Mad Marching Hare, and I got corrected. It's not. It's Mad March Hare. Just goes to show how much I know about Alice in Wonderland. So this is the hand of the Mad March hare, and that's outside being worked on by Lisa. This is the Mad Hatter, and as you can see, inside of the Mad Hatter, we fed a copper pipe, 8mm copper pipe, running all the way through the leg, into the body, out the arm, and he's going to have an arm holding a teapot he stands on an urn which has been cast over there, and water gets fed up through, out of the teapot, into a teacup, and then back into the urn again, and the water gets recycled. And it's just a really nice piece. It's quite a large piece, and it just looks absolutely stunning when it's finished. Come on, she's going to explain. She'll explain to you guys what she's doing. Go on then, Vera, what are you doing?
So, I cast the sculpture yesterday, and today we're going to take it out of the mold and see how it looks.
So Vera's then done a slush casting of this piece, and as you can see just round here, it's about 5 mil thick, and this is the perfect thickness really to cast bronze. If it's any thicker than that, it's fine, it's just super heavy and impractical. Any thinner than that, you need to get the shells super hot, and sometimes if it's not hot enough, some of the sculpture just doesn't cast. But Vera's just going to unbolt this piece now, and we'll undo it and we'll take it apart and we'll see what it looks like inside.
Every time I take it out of the mold, I never know actually how it looks like because wax is very tricky, so it's really weird. We never know.
So like I said, once we cast all these pieces yesterday, a lot of elbow grease goes into them. So you got Sam outside who is wire brushing all of the sort of rubbish shell bits that shouldn't be there. Once a vital part of the process are no longer needed. Funny that. But so at the moment he's just wire brushing, getting it all off, cleaning it all up, and each section's going to be like roughly done until they get put together. And then even when they get put together, they're just going to be tacked into place, and then it's just going to make like a rough circle, and then we're going to bash it all in, make it really nice and round, and then weld it all together. I must say, you've got to be careful though when you're wire brushing, because put eye protection on, because this stuff flings off, it gets you, it's nasty. So always wear, if you can, wear a face shield. At the very least, wear eye protection. Is he wearing eye protection? Yeah, he's wearing eye protection. So Lisa's just prepping a plinth for a portrait we cast. And so we just rough cut it, and now we're just going over it with a nice sort of orbital sander and just making it nice and smooth. In theory, this board here, we screwed it all together and we drawed a few circles on there. There's only meant to be one circle on there, but each section of the ring gets tacked, and then we follow a line, don't we? We just follow a line. So Sam has the great pleasure of putting these pieces together and trying to figure out how to make it a circle. Don't you love it, Sam? That's our center point then, this screw. So we could literally get a string line like... Science! 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 What's up, gang? Thank you for watching this week's episode of the Weekly Roundup Studio Life. This is episode 3. We're trying different variations of filming, so let us know in the comments if you like this style of video. But we've been pouring today, which has been an absolute blast. Lisa's then polished and fitted a bit of wood for the plinth on the portrait. That's all been done. Lucas has been casting some pieces at the back of the shop. The waxwork has been done to a high standard by Vera. Everyone's worked together, done a really great job this week. So until the next episode, we'll see you there. Over and out.